So next we have the lady of the moment, and we have Kate Kerr. And I'm reading the words that Dawn wrote, because I think you might want to hear them. She's a wonderful mom, a qualified mindfulness educator, and an MBSR teacher, a motivational speaker, a change maker, and a marketing executive. Now, when I first met Kate, she was in a senior marketing and branding role, and she'd spent 18 years working internationally with global companies like Mars, McDonald's, Walmart, and Kraft, until her wake-up call. In 2014, she left the corporate world, and in the process is discovering both a new identity and a path to accomplishing her most important work, bringing mindfulness to schools and corporations, and actually also to Company of Women, my other business. So, Kate.
I'm kind of a crier too from time to time, so you might notice that may happen today. I am in awe of the collected expertise which is gathered here for riding shotgun. I'm in awe. And I'm really, really honored to welcome you guys here, so many familiar faces and friends, and share my story as a Thriver and some of the lessons and transformational experiences that I've had along the way. Seeing as we're here to talk about Thrivers, I thought I would share a picture of what one looks like. Apparently, Thrivers wear flippers, strange objects around their knees, swimming caps, and carry a Santa Claus in the middle of summertime. So this is a picture of me when I think I was about 3 years old. And it appears that even back then, I was ready to survive anything. Okay, so for those who've read some of the book, you'll know that my story began on October 28th, 2011, when I got a call. And I was at work, picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm at work. Where else would I be?" And they said, "Well, can you get into a private room?" Well, at that point, my heart starts beating, my mind is racing as I move into a private room, shut the door, and then the voice on the other end says, "Okay, it's your doctor. I don't know how to tell you this, but you have a rare and aggressive and advanced breast cancer." Now, like so many people who have been in this position, in just those few words, my world changed forever. And this wasn't just a cancer diagnosis. For me, this was a massive, gigantic wake-up call. And a wake-up call about stress and burnout. So I often say to audiences, I really wish my story were unique. I wish I was the only one who could share this story. But I know so many people who can relate to my story. For years and years in my working life, I struggled to achieve work-life balance. And I burned out quite a few times. And I chose to sort of not pay attention to it. I chose to ignore it because I was too busy to pay attention, right? But after a while, I did know something had to be done, and so I decided, okay, well, maybe the thing to do is to just get away from it. And so that's what I did. I packed up my one suitcase. I left my family and friends behind in the UK, and I emigrated to Canada to start afresh. I started a new job. I had hired and had a great team. I found my husband here, who is, of course, sitting over there, and we had a family. And I was quite convinced that the combined impact of all of these changes would fix most of these kind of wobbly work-life balance issues, right? And for a time, it did. And everything was sort of looking good. But then something happened. After several years, in fact, I began to slip back into old behaviors again and find myself back where I was when I was in England. And so that sort of took me to my first lesson, which I learned really almost as soon as I was diagnosed with cancer. One of the first lessons I learned was we can't run away from difficulties. How did I learn that? Because cancer taught it to me. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I knew pretty instinctively that I couldn't change jobs, move to a new country, and get married to get rid of cancer. And yet here was another form of adversity and stress in my life, right? So I was like, I'm screwed. I can't do any. How do I deal with this? And so what I learned was that, in fact, I needed to turn towards it. Jon Kabat-Zinn actually wrote, "We can't control the waves, but we can learn to surf." And what he meant by that was, are there any surfers out there? I bet you there's none. I bet you there's none. No surfers. Thought so. So if, like me, you're a non-surfer, which of course you are, you need to know that in order to ride the waves, you have to turn your surfboard toward that huge wave and use the momentum of it to push you through. If you turn your back against that wave and paddle as fast as you possibly can to get it away from it, that wave will come catch up and pull you under. And that's kind of what happened when I ran away from England to Canada. So that was a big lesson for me, and of course redefining our relationship to adversity and building more resilience. Okay, so this photo, which is on the cover of the book, this was taken about halfway through chemo. At this point, I'd probably lost about 40 pounds as well, and all my hair, and a breast, and I had a drainage tube sticking out of me. And it was also about halfway through training in my first mindfulness course. And I will not lie to you, there were for sure many, many, many moments where I literally just wanted to crawl under a rock and never come out. But here's the surprising thing. There were moments when I was going through chemo, moments where I felt better physically, spiritually, and emotionally than I'd ever felt in my life. Why? Because I was experiencing a powerful cocktail of cancer awakening and mindfulness together. And so I was waking up in a different way and experiencing a new kind of joy. I was off work for about 14 months, and not long after returning to work, I was thinking there was a light at the end of the tunnel and, starting to see that light. And then one day, and this is a picture, by the way, of my beautiful mum and me, my mum's sitting over there. You'll hear about her in a sec. I received a call. My father called me and said, "Oh, your mum's sick." I've never seen her this sick. And I said, "Oh, well, you should call telehealth," because I had just spent the last 2 years dealing with telehealth many, many times. So put the phone down. Next morning I wake up and I see a slew of emails saying, "Your mother was really sick. She was rushed to hospital. She's in emergency. She nearly died. She's in ICU. She's on life support, and she might have to have part of her arm amputated." Yeah. So my mother, of course, a year and a half later, was a victim of flesh-eating disease. And I really wanted to share this picture because there are so many survivors out there, right? Survivors, this word that Sherry is the founder of. And now there are so many different kinds of survivors out there. And Mum and I are both pretty strong survivors. I will say that. Because we're both here alive, kicking and well. So the second lesson was you have to meet fear with curiosity. So what I learned in turning towards my adversity is the way to do it is to bring this sense of curiosity, like a beginner's mindset. And when you do that, what happens is that fear thing, it starts to soften a little bit. It starts to kind of melt away a little bit. And so I applied this to my cancer journey. And what I discovered, or what happened, is after many years, I started to get a little curious about death, because death and cancer kind of go hand in hand. And as I got more curious about death, I began to realize that death isn't something necessarily that we need to fear. It actually can be used as a powerful, powerful tool to live our absolute fullest life. And so curiosity helped me learn that. Okay, so I'm back at work, right? Mum's much better. And Don and I were very fortunate through Sherry to do several interviews, and I see Mara and Chantel at the back there as well. Welcome. We were very fortunate to do some interviews about the critical role of caregiving teams. And, you know, I'm blessed too, because I had such a phenomenal caregiving team around me, incredible team. And one of the things that I realize is that caregivers aren't just caregivers. In many ways, they're co-survivors as well. And so this is an image of some of my core caregivers. I have a huge, wonderful medical team. You heard from Vitamin G, Dr. Ginty. She's on my support team. She's an amazing lady. So here's some of the inner circle. The picture on the top left, that was taken when I was just through chemo. That's Alex, my best friend in England. Many of you know she shaved her whole head of hair off the day before I lost my hair to cancer, to chemo, and raised about £5,000 in the UK for cancer research. The woman in the middle, more recent picture of my beautiful mother, who's sitting over there, that's Wendy. She stayed up with me many, many nights during my darkest hours on chemo. Okay, that guy on the top right, he's here in the audience too. He's at the back there. That's John. He's a very good friend of mine and my ex-boss. Now John, what he did, when I got sick, he offered and carried out writing me a letter pretty much every single week for almost a year, updating me on what was going on with the business, because I couldn't be there. Okay, picture in the bottom right, that's myself and my brother wearing kooky shirts. It's a long story, I'm not going to go into it. But needless to say, my brother was my financial advisor and still is to this day. And when I called him to break the news, and that was once again another tough time. When I called him to break the news, the very first words out of my brother's mouth, he didn't even skip a beat, okay? Very first words, Katie, we're going to get through this. So he gave me hope. That's me and Gabriel and Samuel, the munchkins you've seen around today. And of course, that's my Mr. Kerr, the reason why we're all here. And he was, for those that have read the book, a huge rock for me. And I like to say one of the biggest things he did in his role as a caregiver, he reconnected me to the outside world. He was my channel of communication. That rock, I kind of wanted to stay under there a lot. So he reconnected me. He reached out for me because I didn't want to. So that was a pretty pivotal thing that he did. We're now about 2 years post-diagnosis, and that was me running my first marathon. Now, for those that know me, if you had ever said I would ever have even gone into a gym, I would have laughed. I avoided gyms like the plague. In fact, in London, England, I worked above a pub and a gym for 10 years. I had a gym membership. I went once. I was in the pub 5 days a week. So, you know, this is not me. This is not me, but it is. And so, you know, what I did after diagnosis, I completely reinvented my life and work. I completely reinvented everything about how I chose to live my life, and walked away, as Anne mentioned, from a 20-year corporate career, and actually we sold our home and really kind of reinvented our whole world in order to make some big changes in our lives. One of them was riding shotgun, another was starting Wake Up Kate. I started Wake Up Kate because I knew that I needed to keep waking up. You know, back to that whole, I moved countries and then I slipped back into old behaviors, right? So I needed something to keep me waking up. And I also knew I needed to share it with a lot more people. So my third lesson that I learned is that change actually starts from within. So during the 14 months of chemo surgery, multiple surgeries and radiation, I changed my diet completely. I started meditating. I started running. Why? Because I read and did a huge amount of research on how important these things are, particularly for a breast cancer survivor, to improve our prognosis and our survival. That's why I did it. The thing is, after a few months, something remarkable happened. I realized just a few months into this regime that I was no longer doing this stuff just to improve my prognosis. I realized I was doing it because it was making me a better person. I was becoming a better version of myself, a better mum, a better wife, daughter, leader. And it was way more than just improving a prognosis. The better I felt inside, the happier I was. The happier I was, the happier I made other people. So it had this ripple effect. This ripple is how I like to describe it. So, and that started from within. And so that's my third lesson. And so, because, so that's it, I'm wrapping up there. And because we have no music to share with you guys today, I am literally just going to play a 3-minute clip from the late, great Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, because this was my running song, so I've run to this song for 5 years. I know it pretty well. And it speaks inherently to my realization of how much change must come from within. And I think we probably all need to see this right now.